Morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of CAD with Chris. We are going to catch you guys up on the dampener plate. So the whole point of this is you've either missed the dampener, the skid roll cone, the nameplate, or lobster back, or one or the other, or whatever. This is here to help you. Usually we don't get around to drawing this up until later on. So hopefully you've gotten one or two of the CAD lessons. So a lot of the tools that we're going to use in this will be pretty familiar, or maybe starting to become familiar. Okay, so grab your drawing, find your drawing, whatever. Hopefully you still got that with you. But you know what we're looking at is this little plate on your dampener that sits sort of in that area there, near squared around. Okay, it sits behind there, helps sort of choke the flow of the fire. We're going to use plasma to cut it out. So yeah, we've got to obviously draw it up, get that happening. So what you guys need to do is on your drawing, find sheet 2. Pretty easy thing to do. Flip page. All right, so we've got the detail for the actual plate, dampener, excuse the spelling mistakes, and then we got the cutout, which is on your squared around. All right, so basically you do need to do a bit of hunting around. Look at the views, look at the section views, look at the detail views to get a bit of information. We are drawing this part over here up on the right, but we're going to grab a bit of detail off the front face of your squared around, the slot details, because they do or should match up identically. There are a few differences, say with the slotted hole and this hole over here, which is a tapped hole. If we have a look at our detail A, M6 tap, so the slot in the front acts as a stopper, so the thing doesn't keep sliding across. So find your information, have a look at it, think about how you're going to draw it up. I've got a bit of a walkthrough with you guys, or with this video, all right, just to help you, point you in the right direction. So if we've drawn a little bit up together, I don't see you having too many issues drawing this up alone. Sometimes it's a good way to start, just to figure out what you don't remember. So have a crack, use this to just prompt you along. But we need to start up our AutoCAD. All right. Here's one I've prepared earlier. Okay, so this is what we're looking at drawing up. It's not too complex. All right, it's just sort of reinforcing some of those little tools we've learned along the way. So first thing we need to do, all right, is we need to start a drawing. You obviously won't have one there. All right, we're just going to add on to the top tab along here. It opens up to our default isometric sort of drawing style that we have been using, has been working fine for us, so we don't need any other specific template. So open one of them up. First step is to save it. So what I want you to save it as is a dampener plate, because that's what we are drawing, underscore with your name on it, and we're just going to save it as a DWG, or the default AutoCAD file template, or file type, sorry. We're just going to save it as that for now. All right, save it in hopefully you've got a stage 3 folder with our unit that we're working on, maybe even a folder for Potbelly or CAD components. Try and organize yourself that way. All right, save it. I'm not going to. All right, so that's first step 1. Second step is we're going to start drawing this up. All right, so I'll just zoom through this. You pause and start the thing. If you miss something, rewind. That's sort of the way this will work. So I'll select the rectangle drawing tool. All right, I'm just going to select somewhere in the positive territory, referencing the XY coordinates there. Now, our dampener is 119. So I click, drag over to the right it's going to ask me for my first measurement, so 119. To get to the Y measurement, or the height of it, I have to hit tab. It'll toggle across, and it's 70 high. So 119 by 70, I'll hit enter, and then I'll type in Z for zoom, enter, and then extents, or E for extents, enter. Moves me in. All right, here I am. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some center lines in, and I'm just going to use the line tool to do that. All right, so I'll select line, come over to where I think the center of this top line is, and you can see it snaps onto that. Triangle designates the midpoint of our line. All right, if it's not coming up for you, have a look. Your options, drop down options box here for your snaps, make sure they're on, should be on. Make sure that you have your midpoint selected. All right, that way we can ensure we are snapping onto the center of the line. So just a click and escape. And I'll use my hotkey on my keyboard, L for line, enter, start a new line, and I'll put a horizontal one across there too. All right, because if we come across and have a look at our actual drawing, all right, here's our dampener. A little bit of information, not enough here. All right, these are centralized on the plate, offset slots at 21 mil. If I come across, they're offset 21, and about the center line of our plate, they are offset from there also. So that's how I'm going to do this. Okay. So back to our AutoCAD drawing. AutoCAD does not have a slot drawing tool. Okay, so we're just going to draw them manually. So first things first, I need to put in center points for my slots. I'm going to use or do that using the offset tool. All right, so I'll select offset, and I'm going to put all my vertical ones in first. So they were offset 21 mil about the center line. So offset distance is 21. Enter. Center line, one to the right, one to the left, one more to the left, one more to the right. So they're just spaced out 21 mil. Escape. Select my offset tool again. Go back and have a look at my drawing and work out what the height or the lengths of my slots are. So my first or my middle one is 50 mil. So I'll put in 25, half of that, or half of 50, and go one top and bottom, hit escape. Offset tool again, or I can use O on my keyboard as a hotkey. All right. My next one, they're 29 mil apart. All right, so that's 14.5 mil either side of the center line. So top and bottom, escape, O, O, enter. My last little one is 8 mil, so 4 mil either side, top and bottom. Okay. All right, now I've got a grid pattern in there, and I've got locating points for all the centers of my slots. I'm going to go and use the circle radius tool. All right, and just remember with AutoCAD, you either got the command line here, or every time you select something, right near our cursor, we get a prompt. So it's always asking you, you know, if you hover over this, gives you a bit of a quick guide on what's going on. Then it'll also tell you how many steps are possibly involved in the operation. So there's 1, 2 steps to get to a circle. All right, step 1 is specify, like it says on the screen, a center point for the circle. So I'm going to start there, and then this is a center radius. So center, and then specify the radius. So if you have a look at your drawing, what is it? R5. So it's a 10 mil hole or 5 mil radius. All right, so 5. Enter. All right, now I have to do that if I want to draw a circle for every single hole. That's a pain. I'm going to use a copy tool. Once I've drawn everything I like, or my circle that I want, I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to copy it around the job because I don't want to keep doing that. It's probably a quicker way. So with the copy tool, select copy. Anything you want to copy, you select. Once you've got everything you want, for me, it's just this circle. I hit enter. The next step is to reference a point to copy it from, which is just going to be the center or my base point there. All right, and then I can just go through and look at your drawing, obviously, or try and figure out where the center slots or center marks for your slots are supposed to be, but that should follow that pattern. Okay. Once you're done with all your circles, just hit escape. And then the next part is to actually turn these into slots now. So we need to connect this point from here to there, but it's getting a bit busy. So all these lines that we just put in, I'm going to use my selection box, my green panel, just to help me select all these lines, and then I'm going to hit delete. I don't need them anymore. They're only there to help me reference these centers for the circles. All right. Once I've done that, I'm going to go up and select my line tool. All right, and I'm going to draw from quadrant to quadrant, just like that. Now, it's not snapping on to a quarter mark on your circle. Go over to your snaps options and just make sure that the quadrant option is also selected. All right, and then I'll just maintain accuracy. So what I do now is I'll just put lines in between all of these. So I go L, hotkey L, enter, one here to there, escape, L, enter, there to there, escape, L, enter, there to there, escape, L, enter, you know, so on and so forth. All right, using the hotkeys, using your keyboard, getting familiar with that just makes these operations a little less painful, a little more quicker, makes you more inclined to sort of turn to this kind of software to use, right, instead of turn away. Once you've got all your lines in, we need to cut out all the stuff that we don't want, and we're going to use the trim tool for that. So I'll select trim, and I'll just use it in a couple of different ways, but I'll just take out all the stuff, all these inner parts of the circles, clean them up. And then we're basically nearly there. All right. Next thing we need to do for internal detail on our dampener is we need to have a look at, this option here. All right. Now, don't get confused. We're not putting a slot in. Remember, we are doing a tapped hole because over here is the actual plate that we are drawing up. All right, now I've gone through with you guys before why we shouldn't use the plasma to cut out a hole that we're going to tap, okay? But we can use the tools on the plasma to help locate it on the part. So, you know, it saves, well, one, error in marking out, and two, speed, accuracy. Like, there's a lot of benefits. I'm sure you guys are exposed to a bit of that now with etching and marking and all that. So what we need to do is pinpoint this location. All right, so it shares the same center line as this slot. However, it's 8.5mm up off the bottom of our base there. Okay, so going back over to our AutoCAD drawing, I'm going to select the line tool. If I hover over this, select the line tool, I'm going to hover over this circle. You can see when I go near it, it picks up the center point and my cursor will snap to that when I'm drawing. I just want to chuck a line straight down there. Now, to make sure that I am coming down flat, I'm just going to select my ortho mode down the bottom here. All right, and that'll just maintain a nice 90-degree line there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is just offset a line. And it was 8.5mm up off the bottom. So I go offset 8.5, enter. Now, if I select bottom line, see how it offsets the whole rectangle? That's because when I drew this at the start, it was drawn as a rectangle. So AutoCAD, if I hover over it and I select it, it does the whole thing. It recognizes it as a complete part. If I didn't want to do that, all right, I just wanted this individual baseline to come up, I can go and explode my rectangle. and that breaks whatever you've got into individual parts. So I can select explode, select my object, and then hit enter. Now when I go to offset at 8.5 mil, it's just going to bring that baseline or that single line up. All right, because now my rectangle is in 4 different lines, bits and pieces, okay? So these lines, again, we're just using them in here as framework to locate this point. What we're going to do is on the drop down option on our draw tab there, I'm going to select points. And then I'm just going to click once. All right, you're just going to be very careful with points. Click once and then hit escape. I don't want to put 30 points on the page. They are really small. Can't even see it now. Our point style at the moment is a white dot, which is the same line weight or the same weight as the lines that we've got in there now. So you cannot see it. But if I select those 2 crosshairs that I've put in, you can see there is still a white little thing there, and that is my point that I've put in. And the way that we can path this when the plasma comes along, we'll either etch a dot, or we might even just pierce a hole. If your thing had a plate marker or a scribe, you could put something on there like that to mark it up. All right. But what you don't want is 4 of them there, because then it'll, if it doesn't get picked up, it might come along and try and pierce 4 holes or whatever else. So you just have to be a little bit careful when you're making things to be cut out. But apart from that, we just got to put some chamfers on the outside of this now. All right, so if we go back and have a look at our drawing, we can see that we have 2 different types of chamfers. Down the bottom here, we got a 15 by 45. And up the top here, we got an uneven leg length. We've got a 25 by 20. All right. So chamfer all the same, but the operations, the way we go about it in CAD is slightly different. So if in your modifier ribbon there, you do not have the chamfer option available, I think it defaults with the fillet. Okay, just got to go to fillet, come across the drop down option and go chamfer. Come over onto the screen. Now, because we're doing a couple, I'm going to press M on my keyboard first and hit enter, and that is for multiple. Then I need to tell it how am I going to specify the dimensions for this chamfer. Because it was given to me as an angle and a measurement on the drawing, I'm just going to select A for angle. All right. Then it's going to ask me, well, how big's the chamfer? Well, it's 15 mil. Enter. And then what angle was it at? 45 degrees. Enter. Okay. And that's all the information you need to put in. Then you need to select your lines, and it gives you a preview. Before you do it, you select the bottom and the left and the bottom and the right. And then once you've done those 2 chamfers, you hit escape. Then we can go back and select the chamfer again for these top 2 chamfers. Again, M, because we're doing a couple. All right, but this is where it changes because it's an even or an uneven leg length. I am going to specify both sides by distance. So I'll just put D instead of A. All right, now this is one little tip, I guess. Whatever measurement you put in first is the measurement that it's going to pick up when you first select your line, or your first selected line will be the measurement that you put in now. All right, so I'm going to put in 25, enter, and then your second measurement, which is 20, will be the second line length. Well, it might make more sense maybe when I go and do it. So 20 and enter. So if you have a look at your drawing, you can see that this distance from here and down, this distance here, is the longer length of the chamfer. So I put 25 in first. I want this one to be the 25 from here in. And then your second distance, which I put in as 20, is the shorter length, was from there down. All right, so I select this one because I want that to be the 20 mil. I want this one to be the 25, which I put in first. So I'll click first. And then I want this one to be the 20. So I'll click that second because I put it in second. Okay, so that's sort of how it works. Now we need to get that chamfer around the right way because that kind of matches the press lines or gives you a bit of clearance for the slide on your squared around. Hence why it's a bit of an odd distance. All right, but once you've done that, we've just got to do a couple little things to this before we say we're good to go. All right, so drawing errors in case you've got multiple offset lines where you didn't need to, or you didn't want them. What we're going to do is tidy the drawing up. So go to modify, grab the overkill or delete duplicates. All right, select everything and hit enter. All right, we're happy with the default settings there, so I'm just going to go OK, and it give you a little bit of a readout of whether you actually had any duplicate items. Hopefully 0. Give yourself a pat on the back. Hopefully, well, hopefully you had none. But anyway, once you've done that, another thing I want you to do, okay, is join it all up. So in the same place you sort of went for with the little broom, we want to join. So that's the 2 arrows going together. What this does is it takes takes us sort of back to how we went when we drew that rectangle. So I can select this outside perimeter now, and completely joined it. My slots are completely joined. I don't have to select each line and then the half circle to select the whole component. This helps me, or this helps the pathing software that we have at the moment in recognizing that this is a complete shape. So it will help it recognize that this is an outside profile and these are complete inside profiles. So it just helps the process along when we got to go put offset distances for curve clearances and all that sort of stuff on here. So once you've done that, save it again. All right, so you just click that button. Do this periodically every 10 minutes. You should sort of get in the habit of doing it just in case so you don't lose your work. And then once you've saved it, go over to save as. All right, and then this is where we save it as a different file type. We save it as our DXF. Okay, same file name. All right, so dampener with your name. And then you need to email it to me so I can check your work. Okay. And that kind of concludes our drawing of the damper. So, well done.